What you feel like potting about?
I don't want to talk about what we're about to talk about. How about that?
So what you want to talk about? Give me your topic. Give me your
Since you
topic.
brought it up, let's go ahead and do it, right?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Naked Truth Podcast,
where we give people platforms that don't even need it or deserve it.
Where we got people booty ball naked.
We talking about these whack people, and I don't care if your feelings get hurt, but yes, we talking about people who make a decision, which, I mean, everybody has every power to live their lives whatever way they want to. But you could do it in the privacy of your home and nobody gives a fuck. Just as much as you posting on social media and everything, or even having conferences for people who want to turn in their letters because it is going against what God value system, love, church, whatever reason you picking, do it and shut up and go home. We don't care. I don't care. Let me start with that. I don't give a fuck. Me, Will. I don't give a fuck. Because you know exactly what the fuck you was doing when you joined. You ain't that simple-minded, whatever, however young you are. Because again, if you are glorifying anything other than your creator, whoever you believe in, that's your business. That is not the business of any whatever fraternity.com or sorority Inc. Incorporate, whatever. Ain't nowhere in my ritual am I worshiping any false gods or putting whatever. Like, it is just so silly. And I hate that it's getting as much traffic as it is. Like, why do you all think like it's getting so much traction?
Antoine? Well, let's introduce the topic before. So, for those who don't know,
the topic is those whack ass people. You want me to say more PC?
No,
individuals who join fraternities and sororities who have had second thoughts about their decisions in their pledge of allegiance to the almighty Alpha, Sigma, everything, whatever that they join, and they feel like, you know, they're making a bad decision and they want to stop people from making these bad decisions by publicizing false statements about their experience in their fraternal or sorority or organization. Is that a good enough topic?
Will is on one tonight. I love this.
I think that suffices. I think that suffices.
Go ahead, Antoine. Let me
short episode because we're gonna wrap this up. I am not giving them no more.
I don't know if this is going to be a short episode because there are a lot of things to unpack with this, right?
Come on, let's start.
So I will say this, right? This has always been a thing. This is not something new that just popped up out of thin air. This has always been a thing.
I think the only reason media allows people to become viral about something that...
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. The reason why it's becoming big so now is because we are in this social media age where everything becomes a viral moment. And so now this has become a viral moment, right? So here's the thing, right? I have been in the seat that some of these people have been in, right? And so I can see things from both perspectives, although I don't agree with the denouncing of your organization. I can sort of see things from both perspectives.
So right? You can justify their opinion?
Do I?
You can justify their opinion?
Yeah, I can.
Let them cook.
Unpack that.
Let them cook. Let them cook.
I can justify their opinion because I think sometimes what happens is people make their organizations their God, right? I think a lot of times when people join, first of all, people join organizations for various reasons, right?
Right.
And I think sometimes what happens is some people get so engulfed and ingrained in their organization that it becomes like their God. And so when people get on this spiritual journey, they realize that they have put their organization before anything else. And so they need to denounce, renounce, and separate from that because they have realized that they have made a mistake in making the organization a higher priority in life than what it needs to be, right? And that also comes with people not having the relationship that they need to not having the relationship that they need to have with whoever their belief is, right? Whether it's God, Buddha, Muhammad, or whoever. And so I think that comes into play in a lot of situations, but I also think a lot of times churches can influence that decision for people to renounce / denounce their organizations based on their own Christian beliefs or what people think being in a Greek letter organization is about, right? I can tell you my own personal experience. I was in a ministry at a point in my life, and I was very active in my fraternal organization at the time. And one night, we had some boys crossing our chapter, and there was a conflict in schedule where I could not attend the Neophyte show because we had something church related going on at the same time. So I missed the show. Another line brother of mine attended the show, and when word got back to our pastor at the time that my other line brother had attended the show and not attended what we had going on for church, it became a big public I don't even want to say discussion, it was more like an argument in front of the church. And so the pastor was very upset, and he went on this tangent about how fraternity and sororities were not of God, they were of the devil. And this was based off of his limited knowledge of what Greek life is, right? But he knew that several of his members were very involved in their fraternity and sorority organizations. And so, he went on this tangent about getting branded, how that was of the devil, the quote unquote process that you go through to join, all of those things, right? And so at the end of his rant, he made the statement and said, either you are going to put God first or you are going to be a member of your organization, and you have to make a choice. And so he went throughout the room to the people that were in their organizations, and he asked them publicly in front of everybody, who are you choosing? Are you choosing God or your organization? And so there were several people that chose God, right? And I personally think those people chose God out of fear, not necessarily that they wanted to choose God over their organization, but anyway, that's what they did. So it got to me, and he asked me, what did I choose? I told him I was choosing my fraternity because I did not believe in the things that he was saying because, one, I was faithful to my ministry. I was faithful to the things that I was supposed to be faithful to, and still being active in my organization. And I did not feel any conviction or have any issue or problem with doing both because I felt like I could do both. Well, because I chose my fraternity over God, he basically stripped me of all of my titles, and sat me down and told me that I could not perform any of my duties in the church because I had chosen my fraternity over God. And so I was like, okay. And it was a big contention because when I chose my fraternity, it was like everybody gasped. Like everybody was like, because everybody was so shocked that I chose my fraternity over the church. But I just felt like I didn't feel the need to have to make that choice. And why do I have to make that choice? Because you're upset because one of our members went to a show and didn't come to something that we were doing church-wise. And now it's a thing of fraternity and sororities are the devil. But it wasn't bad when you were benefiting from our connections from our organizations. And so for me, I just felt like there's no need for me to denounce. So I did.
I had enough about that story. Let's talk about a couple of things. My church, Antoine, has not yet claimed to say was a very cultish church. That church, you belonged to that church. You didn't belong to God because God did not put that bishop, pastor, whoever in charge. He did not come down and say, "Hey, man, I need you to run this business and I need you to run a district and I need you to run it with these rules, whatever." God ain't give nobody no divine intervention of coming up with whatever process. Now, if that's your religion, that's your faith, by all means. But to say because you believe in this concept theory, whatever, that I have to choose. First of all, I don't have to choose because God is always going to be first. So for you to ask me to have to choose whether or not I'm going to be a part of an organization, and like you can't coexist and have a faith in God as well as be a member of an organization, then you're choosing a church. You're not choosing God. So for somebody, a religious figure, to have to ask you that kind of question, I would question myself. What organization am I a part of? Affiliated in a faith-based religion, that I have to choose what activities I'm doing. If again you are doing, and hopefully, well, I can only speak for Phi Beta Sigma, which I'm a proud member of, which we help the community. I don't know about anybody else organization, but we give back and we help the community. If that ain't an example or principle of God and Jesus, who you believe in, then I don't know what we're doing. So to tell me that what I'm doing with my organization is wrong or of the devil, like I'm saying you of the devil because you telling me what I need to worship you instead of doing what I'm supposed to do here on God's green earth, which is to give back.
So all of those things are true, right? I'm not disputing anything that you're saying. What I want you to understand is when you are dealing with young, impressionable people, sometimes it's like you said, when you're in a situation that can be very cultish, it is very easy to convince people who are impressionable because they are young and still trying to figure out themselves in the world to make decisions that they may not would have made if they really had an understanding and a relationship with God themselves.
So you're saying that if they had a relationship with God, a better relationship with God, that they would not have joined their organization?
No,
Is that
that's
what
not
you're
what
saying?
I'm saying. I'm saying if they had a better relationship with God, then they would not have denounced or renounced their organization based on the fact that it's demonic or
I don't buy that because there are older people in some of these videos, posts, whatever, older people who should be of sound mind, hopefully, because they look like they have kids, somebody they take care of, a job. They got some going on. They ain't no young 20-some, whatever, that are denouncing and renouncing. So
age.
how do you explain those
Age
people?
age does not denounce sound mind.
No,
I
you
know
said
I know a lot of grown adults that are in their 40s and 50s that are not of sound mind, that
but
don't make rational decisions.
you just said that if these people, young people, were not impressionable, if they were of not that age. So I'm trying to use your logic. You're saying a lot of times these people who are denouncing and renouncing are the younger people who are, easily moldable or whatever. But I'm telling you, there are older people. So I don't think it's an age thing.
Well, when I was speaking of age, I was speaking of my situation because we were all college students during that time. right? So when
This
I was
was
speaking of age,
a campus-based faith.
yes, this was a
Yeah.
campus-based faith, right?
Mhm.
So I was speaking of my situation as it relates to the situation abroad. I think regardless of age, people can still be very impressionable because there are people in their 40s or 50s who are just starting, who may have just started going to church, that have been in organizations and may have just started finding and developing a relationship with God, where their relationship is not strong enough to be able to decipher something that the pastor says is wrong versus something that they know is wrong within themselves.
Right. So my point is, one, and in your example, you said that people are making these decisions between God and their fraternity, right? But if you know what you're already doing in your organization, and if I'm paying attention to what, as a new member, whether I'm 40, 50, whatever, I should be able to do, context clues, logic, decision making here to realize that what I'm doing, because ain't no man on this man, woman, child could tell me I'm gonna be able to tell you whether or not you're gonna get into heaven or whatever it is that you're so afraid of that you have to fear uh, picking between God and your allegiance to a fraternal sorority organization.
It's not always that black and white.
Let me. All right. So I got a couple questions before we. Do people denounce for any other reason outside of the religious aspect?
I haven't seen it.
I haven't seen any.
Okay. So could it be that the religious aspect, one, to Will's point, can be a bit cultish?
Yes, absolutely.
But could it also be that the fraternal aspect could also be a bit cultish? And if you're somebody who is susceptible, as Antoine is saying, to following a certain level of leadership, because the leadership or the fellowship is what brings you comfort, that's what leads you to this whole denouncing thing. As somebody who worked for our lovely Dovely headquarters, I had to read through a lot of them dumbass emails. Now, I want to be very clear where I stand. If you make a decision and an oath to God, because I don't know all this demonic shit these niggas talking about, but if you put your hand on the Bible when you make an oath
On the Bible,
to
any
God,
other the 5, 8, or 6.
yeah, I'm just saying, you take an oath to God.
There's the Bible involved,
right?
So
The Bible involved. Feel me?
I don't know.
I think that a lot of times what happens is people are trying to get as close to a righteous reality as possible. And when it comes to certain situations, because people maneuver like this when it comes to a lot of things, whether it's sex, drugs, money, so on and so forth, where they're trying to push away maybe portions of themselves that have overindulged.
Right.
And I think a lot of times, if you're somebody who with some of the things that come on with I would say Greek life as a whole, good or bad, if you overindulge, I can understand if you feel some type of way about the shit that you've done. Cool. But it's also on you to then turn, and how you fix it is not by running from it. Because to me, I look at when I read a lot of those letters and or I see people burning the stuff on social media and making these long drawn out posts, my confusion is always why. And then I think about it from the standpoint of, well, you just found something else to overindulge in. Because from Antoine's example, the pastor or the pulpit or whatever, them people need you to be there to do the work, to take care of certain responsibilities so that this place can keep on churning out dollars, supporters, so on and so forth. The same way how this fraternity, sorority needs you to keep doing the work so that they can churn out other people coming in and so on and so forth. So
in Phi Beta Sigma, I have never heard nobody say that you are required to do this, that, or they say they need people. They want you to, and you have every right to say yes or no. They don't say
100.
you gotta forego taking care of your kid, your wife, your household, whatever. They never said, they never
Yeah,
require you.
but
They ask
it,
you if you can do it, and if you can do it, you say yes or no.
but it's not a matter of asking you that. Like, you don't. If somebody's gonna give and maybe overgive, I don't gotta ask somebody who's gonna overgive to overgive. That's just in them. So if you somebody who can't necessarily stand to the point where it gets too much, when it gets too much, or when you've given too much, like when you finally take that step back, you might look at some of the stuff you've done and be like, I probably shouldn't have did that. Now, if you can't live with yourself, do what you need to do. But I've always been wary about the people who make this big public fiasco out of that, because I feel like if you're willing to do this to something you've made an oath for, what are you willing to do when the church don't service you no more? Because mind you, we're not talking about spirituality and a proper relationship with God. We're talking about a religious organization. And if you look at any religious organization, they've caused wars, they've caused chaos and destruction, all in the names of one, pushing a religion, but then also the manyan. Okay, so like either
My
way,
point, my point with that is that you could still overindulge in church. You could be in church
yes, yes,
7 days
yes,
a week.
yes,
Absolutely.
yes,
Two
You could
things.
overindulge in
yes,
work. You could spend too much time at work
yes,
and don't come home. So
yes.
anything that you overindulge, if you don't have the right balance. But I'm just saying, on behalf of my organization, who is one of 9 that I think are properly operating as much as the others, nowhere in our organization says that you have to give us so much time and you put us before everybody else, and there's nothing in our
But the
guidelines as
organization don't have to ask that question
So
if there's
so
people who are built like that to do that regardless, because they believe
right.
in it.
So here's the thing, right? I think it's more of not that the organization is asking. I think it's more of people's allegiance to the
Yes.
they
organization.
don't
That
ask you
is,
for that allegiance.
it doesn't matter if people are asking you to. It doesn't matter if the organization is asking you that.
Yeah.
If you have joined an organization and you have made an oath, a lot of times
You take that shit seriously.
people do things not because they are being asked or not because there's a requirement. They're doing it out of their allegiance to the organization because that's what they love in that moment. The problem is, like Eddie Lee was saying, is when you overindulge,
Yeah.
right? And it's the same thing with church. Two things can be true at the same time.
Right.
But we also have to be very clear, right? People aren't denouncing because
Talk about
of
it.
the quote unquote oath that they made on the Bible,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
People are looking at
What they've
different
done.
types of situations, right? Some people look back at their processes, right? And we know, depending on when you came in, some processes could have been very dogmatic,
Yup.
right? People look at that and then get in church and they may look at that and say, that is symbolic of worshiping the devil.
For sure.
I don't need to be a part of this organization anymore. So it's not just because someone made an oath on a Bible. It's a lot of different things, and it's all about how people interpret those things.
Yeah.
And
But my point is, you can't hold the organization responsible if the individual doesn't know how to properly balance their allegiance. Because again, and this could be a defense of the church too, because the church didn't ask you to do all that stuff. Now, I have been to churches where I have seen pastors asking people to sow $1,000, and from people who I know ain't got $1,000 to make them last until the end of the month, but they are willing to sow that $1,000 because they are hoping and praying that, if I give this $1,000, God is going to bless me, knowing damn well they don't need to give that $1,000, and they're going to forego food, whatever it is, because they feel like it's a sacrifice. And again, however you practice your religion, I'm not here to judge. I'm just saying the same thing that you are saying of an organization's asking you for your allegiance, a church can do the same thing too.
Yeah,
but it's still up to you to decide whether or not you say yes or no. At the end of the day, the individual should be held responsible. This organization does not have a responsibility to that.
But the organization is like denouncing is removing the organization's responsibility. Because at the end of the day, if you not okay, you as an individual did whatever you did during your process, did whatever you did during your time in the organization, so on and so forth. How good or bad that was is really and truly up to you, because the organization is only going to ask you, did you do what you need to do? Can you put it under these programs? Cool. All right. And they're going to keep it moving. So the individual has to sum up all of what that means and say, this is good for me or this is bad for me. Now, if you're fall into the category of, hey, some of the stuff that I was doing wasn't necessarily right for the person that I either am now or how I look at things, so on and so forth, all of that is fine and dandy. All of that is fine and dandy. I think the problem comes in where, and I feel like people do this outside of just the organization, but it's just anytime they've done things in excess, they look at their past self and they demonize their past self. So now anything that past self was a part of is also demonized because it was the things that either pushed me, prodded me, or I chose to display or portray those actions. And some people can't separate because if I so now if I go to a church, and I know a lot of different churches do this because I've had to argue with a couple pastors and stuff, but if I go to a church where they're talking about that allegiance to God and they're talking about that allegiance to Christ and they're talking about putting him first and things of that nature, and then on the flip side they're also throwing in these slight jabs of, and for those out there who
Who ain't
put,
living right.
yeah, who ain't living right or put false prophets or whatever, like it's those small things, those small nuggets that if I'm already susceptible to looking at the things in my past as a negative, I'm only going to pick up those things more and then have to do I'm going to have to overcompensate for what I believe I've done wrong. And
Because it's something that somebody told you that you are doing.
Yes,
But if
but
I, as an individual,
or even if they feel it, even if they feel like they've done wrong, let's say they feel that way. Let's give them the benefit
how
of it.
do you learn what's right or wrong? How do we learn what's right or wrong?
I mean, you learn a part of it as nature versus nurture. You learn depending on how you came up, certain things is right or wrong, and then depending on whatever your own personal morality is, certain things is right and wrong. And then we got laws out this motherfucker, so some of that stuff is right and wrong.
What people's influence on you,
yes,
that determines you're good or bad, right or wrong, right?
But what I would say is, I don't think the people who's denouncing 9 times out of 10 have the biggest willpower to not be led by something else. Because if we can agree that most of the people are denouncing and the reason they're giving is trying to work on being closer in another organizational thing that just so happens to be religion, right? They're still having something that they're pledging allegiance to. So they understand the mindset of understanding why they probably joined a fraternity or sorority is the same thing that probably brought them to joining the church. It's just the church is now aligning with the part of them that they're still either trying to discover, trying to get closer to, trying to grow from, because whatever they look at from the past them, they've demonized it already. Before the church said anything, they've already demonized that shit. They're already looking back.
They have to learn that from somebody that it's a demonic act.
No,
they
but
have to learn it from somebody.
I don't think it's a thing that they have to learn that from somebody that it's a demonic act. I think it's along the lines of what Alex says, right? It's really about looking at your past self and the things that you did and saying, the things that I did when I was in fraternity in undergrad, or when I was bringing in people, or when I was going to these parties and doing X, Y, and Z, does not align with the person that I am now. The things that the church are saying to me more so aligns with the things that I am now. So I am going to get rid of my fraternal organization or sororital organization because they no longer serve me or align with who I am in this moment and who I am choosing to become, because those values are different than what the church is saying the value should be. And so people tend to make that decision because, again, it goes back to the point where I feel like personally, people don't have their own personal relationship with God to the point where they can say, yes, I may have did some bad things in my past. I may have did some bad things in undergrad. But does not make the organization as a whole demonic or bad. That just means I made some bad decisions.
But to Antoine's
Who
point,
just
I
so happen
also
to be a member of that organization.
but
That
but I
organization has
would
nothing
but
to
I
do,
would
because even if they presented the opportunity to do
yeah.
bad things, right? Say if they said, "Oh, well, this one fraternity is known for having gangbangs or whatever," you amongst yourself had a choice to say, I don't affiliate with this part of this organization.
I
And it's
understand.
not even about this organization. It could just be the members of this organization is having this promiscuous sexual act. But never in Omega or wherever anybody else's organization name says they do these things and these are a part of our fraternity.
But we
So you
understand all that.
cannot mix you can't mix what people do as individuals who are members of an organization to then paint it with the same paintbrush to say this is our organization. Because
But
there's
if
bad people in every organization. Because just because they're molesting people in the Catholic Church doesn't mean that you all of a sudden don't belong.
nah, that's not what we said. Look, all right, I'll break it down to you like this, right? If I'm part of a church and the church is telling me, hey, if you participated in X, Y, or Z, that's wrong. And I know I've participated in X, Y, or Z. And the goal of church is supposed to be developing a closer relationship with the highest of high powers, right? So they're saying, hey, you're trying to walk this walk. You're trying to develop this relationship. And to you personally, from an individual perspective, you may look back on your actions of X, Y, and Z and feel some type of way about that. With the church is saying, hey, we want you to get closer to God. We want you to develop a relation. Hey, side note, hint, hint, wink, wink. Also, if you participate in this, that, and the third, you're messing up your chances of this righteous life. They are doing those side comments, whatever they are. But as the person, if you you went to the church or you went to anything that's kind of trying to push you to a greater path, because there's something within you that you was already feeling some type of way about, whether or not it was God, it was fucking trying to lose weight, it was trying to stop drinking. It don't matter what it was. The person is having some type of internal issue with them, and then they're looking at the things that they've done in their past that may be tied to that internal issue that they have, and they're trying to remove themselves as far away from that. So they're demonizing their past and their past actions. Through demonizing those past actions or the past person that they've been, the organization is now catching a stray, because if I'm able to demonize myself, I'm able to turn around and call anything quote unquote demonic. But it's
my point. You're saying my point. My point is this: do not, and I said this at the beginning of the episode, do not hold my organization, and I'm sure other people who are very faithful to theirs, do not hold your organization responsible for your individual actions.
But that's
and
the
whatever.
thing. That's the thing. That denouncing, because through denouncing, right? Nothing actually happens. All they do is send their letter and feel better. But through none of these organizations are removing your name from the record, because we can't. None of these organizations are striking you down or telling you anything. You denounce, you send your letter, and guess what? If I want to keep the email, I can. If my damn cloud storage is full, it gets deleted. And guess what? You just stop paying your dues and you become inactive and your profile goes inactive. And that's all that happens. But at the end of the day, what they're running from through denouncing don't have nothing to do with the organization, yes, but at the same time, denouncing is just making them feel better. Now, as a member of a fraternal organization, it would be nice if niggas just sent the email or sent the letter and just kept pushing, and without the whole grandiose
That's the point that I'm talking
joint.
about.
But
Denounce, shut the fuck up, and move the fuck
that
on.
would be
Now
that'd be
you're
great.
bringing
That'd be great.
approach on my
But
organization,
that's the
talking
thing.
about something that's not true.
Yes, but that's the thing. The other side of it is a lot of the times when people are in a lot of these religious organizations, one of the things that they preach is that you don't just accept God in private. You're supposed to say it out loud. You're supposed to boast. You're supposed, and I think people take that aspect of it and say, well, I was a part of this, which may have pushed me to do some of the things that, whether that's true or not, that's just what they're going to say. Hey, when I was a part
No,
of, go ahead.
That's very true.
Yeah.
And here's an example. I know a girl who recently denounced her sorority,
you
right?
actually admit to knowing somebody. I don't even want to admit to know anyone. They better not. You
Well,
better.
surprisingly, you know people that have denounced.
They better not tell me. They better not. They better take it to the grave.
One
Don't
person
you
went
dare
to
come
George
around
Mason.
me. Huh?
One person went to George Mason.
Well, no, I'm sure there are people at George Mason that joined an organization that did, but they better not say they're my friend or they're.
Hey, look,
They
better
did, but you might have missed that announcement. It was a few years ago.
Hey, look,
but anyway,
I had a brother who came in the semester before me and denounced the semester after me. I don't know what he was doing in that year, but he came in fall 16 and he was out by fall 17. Okay, so
I'm scared.
I don't know what he was doing,
You're
but
protecting the innocent right now.
But to the point that I was making, when the girl made her announcement, the one thing that she said was, when I joined my sorority organization, I joined publicly.
Mm-hmm.
So I am making my denouncement publicly.
Mm-hmm. Keeping the same energy. She keeping the same energy. I can respect it. You keeping the same energy.
Okay, just denounce again and go home, go shut the fuck up. But to not talk about my organization that we did something to you when it was your responsibility.
But that's the thing. Most of these things aren't saying they did something to you. Most of them are not. Like, I've read a whole bunch. Most of them are not saying that the organization did. What they say is, due to me getting closer to God and upholding my religious beliefs, I no longer feel like this organization represents what I'm trying to do with my life. And realistically, if you want to distance yourself from whatever may push you towards your vices, who am I to tell you not to do it? All I'm saying is it would be nice if we wasn't catching the stray, but at the same time, the stray is going to come because if you're already demonizing yourself, which is causing you to also demonize your past, which is also being further upheld by your pastor or whatever religious beliefs is demonizing as well, you gonna expect a couple strays. There's a whole lot of bullets coming around this motherfucker.
I mean, in all honesty,
here's my example. That's like saying I like to eat at whatever restaurant name you want to call it. Mm-hmm. That restaurant serves food. That restaurant serves liquor.
Yeah.
They sing you happy birthday on your birthday, and everything is positive, right? I go to that restaurant every single day, and I eat the 5,000 calorie food, and I get fat. I can't blame the restaurant for providing a meal that I should know how to say, oh, I can't eat 5,000 meals.
We can't say that, though. We can't say that.
Wait. I'm not finished yet. I'm not even finished yet. Even if we say I'm an alcoholic, just because they serve liquor for those who want to consume liquor, it's not a requirement when you walk in the door of a restaurant. They don't say, hey, you better go to that bar and take a shot. But if I am somebody who have a problem with consuming liquor to a safe, balance, whatever, like it is not that that restaurant's responsibility, blame, or anything for still serving liquor to those who do want to consume, because you as an individual cannot control your habits, whatever.
Yeah, but at the same time, because think of McDonald's. We gonna bring up there's a perfect example for your point. McDonald's and the Happy Meal. McDonald's got sued over the Happy Meal because of its marketing. And what they said was, hey, the way they're marketing these things to kids made it harder for parents to say no to the Happy Meal from a couple perspectives. The proportion sizes versus their stuff. Of course, the toy, then the commercials, things of that nature, and then the oppression of a kid. So, and people won that lawsuit against McDonald's. So to say we can, I feel like, yes, it is up to the individual to get to a better understanding of themselves and get to a place to where they're not succumbing to a level of demonizing who they've been, who they will be, who they could be, so on and so forth. But we also can't act like organizations, any organizations, don't have things about them that can also push you towards the things that may be your vices. So therefore,
Absolutely.
if you're distancing yourself from whatever it may push you towards your vices, I don't blame you. All I'm saying is it would be nice when you distance yourself to just step away gracefully. But some people don't want to.
I think that is just people's automatic
Yeah.
reaction, because
Yeah.
regardless of whatever organization you're a part of, it doesn't even have to be a fraternal or sorority
sure.
organization. Prime example. I got hurt in my church. I left my church. But when I left my church, every church caught astray, because in that moment, I was anti-church because of the hurt that I went through with my church. That doesn't mean the churches down the street are bad.
Yeah.
But they were catching strays just because in that moment, I was like, I'm done with the church. I don't want nothing to do with the church.
Somebody go catch a stray. You shoot.
Exactly.
You letting your gun off. Feel me? You letting your gun off, and the target ain't just there. It's anything with that cross at that point. It's just like when somebody say niggas ain't shit.
Yeah.
You might be the best dude in the world, but right now that's how they feel. So guess what? Duck. Because they letting their gun off. Because they letting their gun off.
There's still a responsibility that if you're not fucking with somebody,
okay,
you just step away, right?
For sure.
Because to me, when I don't fuck with you, you ain't got to worry about me talking about you in the streets. Because why? I don't have anything to say about you, good or bad, right?
Okay.
However, as a responsibility that you are talking about an organization, do you want to get sued? Because you're making these claims that these oaths and pledges at initiations and all these, like, you're trying to make up all these things that are not true about an organization, is like putting you at liability.
But we can't
how
act like
how do we know some of these things aren't true?
Yeah, how we know some of these things aren't true, and why are we acting like people don't want their viral moment? Like, there's also the age that we live in. Like, if I know, hey, I may not I'm gonna get a few clicks off this at the very least, and what better way to, if I'm supposed to say this out loud and pledge this out loud and so on and so forth, then I know if I do this, I'm gonna either get people in my comments telling me what the hell are you doing, or I'm gonna get people in my comments praising my decision. I'm gonna get the church folks into it, so on and so forth. I'm gonna get a little bit of clout at church. You know what I'm saying? They might shout me out. I might get a shout out from the pastor this week. You feel me? Like, people will do what they want to do for a viral moment. So like that's just the vibes. You know, I'm not saying none of this is right. And in a perfect world, they would denounce, they'd send their letter, we'd throw it away appropriately, their profiles go deactivated, they don't pay no dues no more, everybody goes on with their life, they live their religious life, or they get good with God, or whatever the fuck they doing, and we continue to run the organization, and everybody's kumbaya. But this is the real world. In the real world, people need some shit to fight over. So therefore, not only is they going to denounce, they're going to put that shit on their Instagram, they're going to burn their letters, they're going to make a big fiasco, and you know, it is what it is.
I'm going to keep it. Again, I believe in God, so I'm not somebody who is an atheist or anybody who lacks the faith.
Shout out to God.
And so this is not to go against any of our listeners who do not have a religion that they subscribe to. From my belief system, again, you ain't gonna talk about two things: my fraternity, that is not true, and you also ain't gonna talk about what God said tell you to do. God didn't tell you to renounce no organization.
But let me ask you this question:
Well,
How do you?
go ahead.
No, sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
So my point was the thing is how I believe this life, and everybody has an opinion, right? So again, this is Will's comment, and so I don't want nobody coming to sue me, but I'm still saying you're doing a dumbass shit. But my point is, ain't no way if we believe in a theological um, presence of a higher power. God does not say you so and so. Now, I do believe in intervention, and there's ways that you can communicate with God, and even shoot through a therapist, you can find out things that you are doing that are unhealthy for your relationship with God or whatever it is that you're doing. However, I have not still yet seen in Phi Beta Sigma where we do anything that is going to cause detriment to yourself that you can't pick up from somewhere else. Uh, Hold on. I said that you cannot, meaning not, it said exempt. I said that you cannot, you can go to a sports bar, you can be going to strip clubs, you can go to anything. You can be, God is always at the 50-yard line for every game, whatever it is that you are not balancing well. And if it comes and interrupts your ability to give God the praise and honor that he deserves, if you are a believer, that's my point, is that there's nothing in Phi Beta Sigma that tells me that I cannot give praise to God. There are other clubs within this fraternity that if you wanted to connect with other faith-based people, if you wanted to join a Bible club, Bible study, whatever, there are Bible study clubs within Phi Beta Sigma. There are preachers that are part of Phi Beta Sigma that you could join a club and be a part of a faith-based Facebook group, whatever, that are people of Sigma. There's all kinds of ways. And so to me, again, in Phi Beta Sigma, I don't know about any other organization, but I hope they operate the similar way. There's no way where they say that you are worshiping a past founder, glorifying them as like idols or whatever. Because I guess the same thing could be said about me when people are talking about Catholics and they say, well, why are you praying to these other people other than God? It should only be God. And I'm like, well, in this religion, they believe in intercessory, that, if you pray to a saint and the saint can help, it's like, hey, can you put a good word in with God? That's what intercessory is. So I'm just gonna get off my platform.
Antoine, what was your question?
So here's the thing, right? I think we have to be very careful when we say there's nothing in Phi Beta Sigma that doesn't say X, Y, and Z.
I never said that. You took part of my statement. I said that is exempt from something else that you can find an addiction from somewhere else. I didn't say that. That's what I said. There's nothing in Phi Beta Sigma that you can't also find in another organization. That's my full statement. I didn't say there's nothing in Phi Beta Sigma that isn't causing harm or whatever. I'm just saying there's nothing in Phi Beta Sigma.
That's not what I said.
What did you say, Antoine? What did you say that I said? Let me make sure you correct.
I said we have to be careful in saying that there is nothing in Phi Beta Sigma that says or does anything as it relates to worshiping an idol, right? Because here's the thing that you have to understand. One, it's all about people's perception. And the truth of the matter is, there are certain things in our rituals that someone could perceive as worshiping a founder or worshiping a Greek god or whatever the case may be, right? Again, it's all about a person's perception.
Yeah.
That's number one. Number two, we can't act like there aren't chapters in our organizations who do different types of rituals outside of the ritual that is established by the fraternity.
Again, the organization's ritual, not any chapter or whoever made up some.
You can't say that, because at the same time, like, that's an extension of the organization. A chapter.
No,
that
you are doing unaffiliated.
Okay, so you telling me now, if a brother is a part of a chapter and does something stupid, it's not gonna fall back on the organization?
What?
If a brother is a part of a chapter does something
He will be
stupid,
held responsible.
yes, but it's not
for
going
his
to fall back on the organization.
What do you mean fall back? That's the word. What are you talking about?
Like,
When you say fall back?
like if he does something stupid outside, like let's say
Right. And somebody gets hurt, yes. You know who they're going to sue? Phi Beta Sigma and that individual.
then.
And you know what they can come after Phi Beta Sigma? Because Phi Beta Sigma has an insurance policy. That's the only reason why they hold them
But
responsible.
it don't matter. It still falls back on the organization, because guess what? When we take that oath and we wear them letters and so on and so forth, it's just like when police officers take the oath or anybody else and something bad happens, like, bro, it's gonna fall back on what you represent. You represent that. You're an extension of that. So we can't just turn a blind eye like we aren't an extension of something big. I'm not saying you are. I'm saying you said it's the individual's responsibility. It is the individual's responsibility, but at the same time, the stuff that they are part of is going to take effect. Eddie Lee is not just the name I work under, but it's also my business. So therefore, if I be outside and I do something stupid, they gonna come to that LLC like, hey, cough it up, feel me? Like you can't.
But there's nothing in Phi Beta Sigma's membership intake process, okay, that says you are to do any of these things.
100. We understand that, but at the same time,
my point is, anything that you're doing outside of that is your individual's.
But it's still under the umbrella of the organization, because anybody doing it to you, we hope anybody who's doing it to you is also a member of the organization. So we hope, but like for the most part, they are. So it's like that also counts. So the organization is too big not to catch the stray, even if they don't want to. That's why they got the insurance policy in the first place.
Because they know they got dumb people that do dumb shit.
Sure. Just like every organization do. Just like every
they are authorized representative of the organization. If they are not, if they're doing something that is
it don't matter.
It don't matter. It don't matter.
Yes. It don't matter.
Yes.
It don't matter. In the eyes of the law, it don't matter.
It don't matter.
In this conversation, it don't matter. It
don't matter. If you are wearing letters and you kill somebody, you killed the person.
But guess what? They still
not Phi Beta Sigma.
But they gonna put it on it. The public is gonna say a Sigma kills somebody. Yeah, they're gonna see that.
Killed somebody. They ain't gonna see it as the individual killed somebody. They gonna see it as Phi Beta Sigma killed this person.
I'm talking about if Antoine or Will, whoever members of this organization,
don't matter,
is just walking down the street,
don't matter,
and I pull out a gun and I unalive somebody,
don't matter.
Again, you can't say now. Here's where they can be held responsible. If we are doing things in the name of Phi Beta,
it don't matter.
Then that person can say, but just me as an individual. You can't say everything that I do and my actions are
okay. So when we when we was in
that's the number one thing they tell you when you cross.
Yeah, for sure. When we was in hold on.
All right, I get that. I didn't say that, but I'm saying legally you can't hold the fraternity responsible for something that I did as an individual.
Yes, you can. Because guess what? You represent something bigger than yourself. So yes, I'm gonna hold them responsible too. Because guess what? We gon' it's just like when they just put the two parents away for the school shooter and shit like that. Like that's where you come from.
The parent gave their child.
That's where you come from.
Stigma is not giving people guns.
We can't say that. They giving you.
The stigma is not saying that this is a membership process that you have to pledge through to kill yourself.
But some of the members are saying that. So therefore, it's an extension. They got to get it from somewhere.
You know how that's why we have a membership intake process that you have to be certified to be.
Every
what you do.
Every organization.
If you're not certified to be somebody to bring somebody through a process, then that's that fraternities.
Right, I'm gonna ask this question. I'm gonna ask this question.
Go ahead.
Does everything have a dark side?
There's good and evil in everything.
All right, cool. All right. Cool. That's all I need to know.
I never refuted that.
All right. No, I'm just saying.
Again, like I said, all I need to know. Like I said, you can find good and evil in everything.
And all I'm saying, if the evil is out there, for better or for worse,
of the
because
human
of
being.
the humans that are a part of these things,
Exactly.
then
Yes.
therefore you're going to run into a situation where if
Where
the
the members,
if the evil catches somebody who's just who can't handle it no more and they gotta step away, you still gonna catch the stray for that said evil, because to them, in their perception, that evil is not just a part of that chapter, not just a part of that small circle, but a part of this bigger brotherhood, this bigger organization, this thing that's supposed to be bigger than them. So therefore, you gonna catch that stray. That's why it's happening. It may not be right. Once again, we would love for this to just go on in peace, but because of the realistic view of how this shit is going down, that's not how it rocks, you know. And that's the naked truth. Feel me?
the naked truth is people need to be accountable for themselves and keep Phi Beta Sigma or whatever organization out of their mouth, because at the end of the day, you as an individual have your own responsibility and accountability to yourself. And I get it. If you say that Phi Beta Sigma is bringing you or introducing you to things that are too tempting or whatever it is that you can't live a good life, then by all means, do what you got to do. But Phi Beta Sigma, again, in this concept of what it is, and hopefully in all the other divine nine organizations, do not tell you to do certain things as a requirement of being a member of this organization. That's all I'm saying.
At the end of the day got to end. Know God for yourself.
Know God for yourself. Don't let anybody else try to interpret it for you. And work on your relationship with who you want to work on your relationship with. So on that note, we're gonna wrap up. And I still say the same thing again. If you go denounce and shut the fuck up. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of The Naked Truth, where we get naked and be real.
Let's get naked.
Let's get naked.